Great. So, well, it's afternoon here. Good morning to you guys there.
Hello, hello.
Yeah. And happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day.
Same to you, man.
Right. Our celebrations have just ended at Kololo, and we are celebrating the 59th, of course, anniversary of our country. And the theme, securing our future through national mindset change. Interestingly, that is what our theme is for today. My name is Lynn Komugisha, for those of you who are meeting me for the first time. I am a multimedia journalist here at the New Vision, or rather Vision Group, and I'm very privileged to be part of this conversation, timely conversation, I must say, because it's one of those conversations we ought to, have over and over and over. While the president was speaking earlier today, he really emphasized patriotism, and I think this is one of the ways we can exercise our patriotism by talking about issues that affect our country, issues that, advance our country, and that is very key. He also emphasized wealth creation, which he has, passionately talked about for quite some time. I'm bringing you up to speed on what, if you missed out on that speech. He also talked about, was very appreciative of the global community for always providing market for the Ugandan goods, which we have. I think we have taken a good step in that direction. Bubu, Buy Uganda, Build Uganda. He's also appreciated about the whistleblowers who report perpetrators of corruption. When I picked this particular one is because corruption is one of those biggest challenges we have as a country. And while we have these conversations in how far we have come and the expectations and of course the challenges, it is one of those big challenges we have as a country. Well, but there was also a very interesting one that talked about that, pointed to agriculture. He talked about crop farmers, cattle keepers, fishermen, manufacturers, and the like being the core of this country. So while we, try to digest today's theme, I hope we can also tackle what agriculture looks like at the moment. Another very interesting one is that Uganda's first oil is to be pumped out of the ground by 2025. Yes, that was also something when he talked about. But if we can go now into today's conversation, we are today marking 59 years of independence. We have some of the Ugandans who were teenagers at the time of our independence. They're sometimes called baby boomers. Now they're senior citizens. And Uganda has traveled a journey full of challenging economic and political challenges and changes. Well, during Milton Obote's time, he did mention that past belongs to our grandfathers, the present belongs to the adults of today, but in the future, which is of the greatest importance to our country, belongs to the youth. And I hope the youth of today can take that. Our panelists today, I'm trying to see if Senior Yoga is here yet, but from what I see, he's not joined us yet. But I want to recognize Albert Bakasara, Deputy Speaker, UNAA. Thank you for joining us, and a very good morning to you. Yes, we have Miriam Kyomugasho. She is the Director of AFRICC, Ohio, US, and also Director at CCG, I beg your pardon. She's also a Pan-Africanist and a human rights activist. Thank you very much for joining us. We have Kamuhanda Francis. He is the coordinator, Alliance for National Transformation, USA. I don't know if that is the Ugandan chapter. I think he'll tell us more about that. We have Kennedy Burashe. Kennedy, I think we have interacted a couple of times, either on social media or something, but yeah, we have interacted. He's the chairman, NRM Washington. I think that is the NRM Washington chapter, right? We're glad to have you, gentlemen and lady. We'll be waiting to also welcome Yoga Adhola of the UPC Now, a little bit about yoga. He spent the Amin days in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, when Amin fell in 1979. He became the main liaison between the UPC president and the party in the National Consultative Council, the parliament at the time. And from 1980 to 1985, he was the editor-in-chief of the UPC paper, then known as The People. Following the coup of 1985, he went into exile, first in Kenya and later the US. Now, during this period, he was a regular contributor to the press in Uganda. He is recognized as the leading ideologue of UPC. But before I thought we would start with him for him to give us a little bit of his independence then. But since he hasn't joined us yet, I want to start with you, Miriam, for example. Miriam, we are celebrating 59 years. How do you feel at this particular moment as a Ugandan in diaspora? Yes, we are live on Facebook, by the way, and on the Center for Constitutional Governance Facebook page, on Twitter as well. We are on Civic Space TV, hashtag Ugandans in Diaspora, and the like. We'll also be on YouTube very soon. But over to you, Miriam. How do you feel as a Ugandan in diaspora, 59 years down the road?
Thank you, Ms. Komugisha. To me, Uganda is, as a country, is still a baby, a very promising baby, a baby who has been through a lot of challenges, including violence ever since it was conceived in 1884 by the British Protectorate. So Uganda didn't bring itself in life, it's someone's interest which brought Uganda into life. And ever since then, it has been struggling to set itself free. And when we got independence, it's like it was just achieving the independence, the political part. The rest, the social, the economic, even the large part of the political, we are yet to be independent as a country, as a nation. Uganda still has a big challenge in nation building, but it's been through a lot, and it's very promising going forward. But I would like to see something like peaceful handover and power, institutions which are working. I want to see a political space where everybody is free, not like one group is like as if it's persona non grata, then the rest of the group is like they own everything. I want to see a Uganda where everyone feels they belong and they have a stake. Uganda is very interesting, and I think that 21st century, it's very promising because we have the youngest one of the youngest populations in the world. We have very many natural resources, including the manpower, the fertile soils, the good weather, but we still lack in economic production. I would like to see Uganda where we are not selling nature, which God gave us as in industries, as in raw materials, but where we are producing products for sale, industrialization. The president talked about wealth creation, but we are not going to create wealth out of the blue. How are we going to create wealth without economic production? We have not yet transited from subsistence economy to industrial economy, and that's still a big hurdle. I thought NRM government would do something about it because it seems has always been transformation for the last so many years, but we haven't yet got there. What does Uganda produce? We have a consuming economy. It's like consumption all the way from matchbox to the needle, to medicine, to whatever you want. It's like even secondhand clothes. We can't even produce clothes, though we have the cotton. So we want to see industrialization. At least we transform the agriculture sector from exporting raw materials to processing, and we produce finished products. I would like to see a Uganda which is part of a united East African community, a united Africa. Uganda alone itself is not enough. we are part of a very big continent, which is Africa, and our challenges are shared across African countries. When we are celebrating independence as a Pan-African, last week I was in function, Nigerians were also celebrating their independence. So most of African countries kind of got their independence around this time. But if you listen to each of them, almost our challenges are still the same. We are still that raw material producing economy for the Western world as we were before independence. We are yet to transit, to transform into an independent economy, independent country, continent, politically, economically, socially, even culturally. And I wish to see those transformations happening.
Right, thank you very much, Miriam, there. Now, allow me to speak to Albert Bakasara. Now, Albert, you are an economist. You are into math and the likes of budgeting and all those things. Now, we need to realize that our development is the destiny of our nation. It lies in our hands. This itself is sufficient reason for us to be so happy and to celebrate today. We have expanded a little bit from 1.3 billion US dollars, and this our president often talks about. We have expanded from 1.3 billion US dollars in 1986 to now 40 billion US dollars. We have a number of points that we need to concentrate on in order to transform Uganda into a middle-income country. We are on that road. We are not yet there. Albert, what is your take on how far our country has come?
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, panelists. I wanted to first correct you. You had introduced myself as the Deputy Speaker of the UNAA Council. My term of office ended, so they have a new Deputy Speaker of UNAA. But I'm a community leader here in the Washington, D.C. area. And yes, I'm close to an economist as you can get. I do federal budgeting here in the Washington, D.C. area, and I do have an MBA, so its numbers are my thing. But Uganda's problem, and I want to echo some of the themes that Miriam hit on. And I know we'll have a spirited debate with my brother Kennedy as time allows. But I wanted to, since you started this conversation by introducing me as the numbers guy, so I'll embrace that role. Uganda's problems are not numbers. It's the challenges that the country face are not numbers. The numbers actually, when you look at them, are very, very good. You look at the economic indicators, you look at the growth in the economy, but they're selective numbers that we're looking at. When those numbers are thrown around, they don't put into consideration the growth in the population. They don't put into consideration what is happening around us, the changes in the global economy, the missed opportunities. So they're just saying there, and usually our benchmark is, oh, this is where we were in '86 when President Museveni took office. This is where we are now. But as a numbers guy, that's not what we measure. When I'm at work and we're looking at budgets, we don't really look at the growth in expansion in numbers or the contraction in numbers. What we measure are usually both the outputs and the outcomes. Yes, let's say the output, you've built 15 schools in the last so many years. That's not what the Americans measure, because that's the only measure I can give you, because they work for the federal government. We measure both the outputs. It's important that you actually do build the school and it's there, it's a structure and it can be seen. But we also measure the outcome. So when you've built those 15 schools, how many students graduated? And of those students who graduated, how many got jobs? And of those that got jobs, how many are paying taxes? So those are the outcomes that the government should start looking at. In Uganda, the country is so consumed with these numbers, but only at the output level. These are the many roads we've built. You can go in windy forest and build 1 million square miles of road. They will not add a single thing to the outcome of the economy or the well-being of the people. They probably will drive away tourists because they come to Uganda to see a pristine environment. So those are the kind of things we're looking at. Yes, you look at the buildings in Kampala. There was a building boom. How many of them are occupied? And of those that are occupied, how many are really paying taxes? What is the income? What are the income generating activities? You have a factory. How many people is it employing? You've brought in an investor. What have they contributed? Are they paying taxes? How many Ugandans are they employing? And even when they're employing them, in what areas are they being employed? So those are the things that we need to start measuring. I will start there. I'll stop there on the numbers arena. Then on Uganda itself, and I want to wish all of you a happy independence anniversary. On Uganda itself, where we go, and I heard you mention the youth and the president's speech, where we are at a critical stage. And when we were moving slow, then came in the challenges that have come with COVID-19. Yes, the pandemic, the medical, biological scare of the pandemic is kind of being managed. We know what to do now after 2 years. But there is an economic pandemic that is looming. Our kids are not in school. They may end up being a lost generation, which in the future may actually become an economic and even security threat to the country. We have not prepared ourselves for the new post-COVID-19 economy. We are still lock up, now open up, lock up, now open up. It looks like we're stuck in this cycle without looking at this economic pandemic that is looming. Unless we wake up now and really start looking at these looming challenges, we're going to face a difficult time. Uganda is going to face a difficult time in the near future, by the way. This is not something that will manifest itself 20, 30 years from now. It's going to be here tomorrow, because you can see here, for example, here in the US, you can literally see the economy changing. You can see it. You can see a new post-COVID-19 economy. I don't know if Uganda is seeing that. I don't know if Uganda is prepared for that. I have not been in Uganda since 2018 for obvious reasons. But I'm not sure. You guys on the ground, maybe you can talk about that as we go along. Have we moved as a country? Yes, my motherland has moved. Uganda is not the Uganda that Obote left. It's not the Uganda that Amin left. It's not even the Uganda that Museveni found. It's not even the Uganda of Museveni in the 2000s or 1990s. Uganda has moved. I think what we're missing is what is making it move. In the good things, the NRM and the president would like to take credit, even all over. But especially for you, Lynn, as journalists, this is your job, because you're supposed to be educators and information disseminators, for the community. This is your job, to educate our community, especially the younger generations, to show them how we have moved from where we were in 1962 to where we are right now, and that incorporates the variety of factors that have come in to lead us where we are, the challenges we're facing and why we're facing them, and how we're fitting into this whole global village. So that's your job as we can be here as community leaders and do our part, but I think the most important part is going to be played by journalists and in forums like this where we're talking to each other and exchanging ideas. I'll stop there. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Right. Thank you very much, Albert, for those interesting ideas. Kennedy, are you with us? Kennedy, I would love for you to get back to us on what Miriam and Albert have so far talked about, because Uganda under the NRM is here celebrating 59 years, and we seem to have made strides, but according to Miriam, we still have a lot to do. We are not yet independent. Miriam says she looks forward to a Uganda where everyone belongs, industrialization, a united East Africa. Albert mentions that it is just not the numbers, because I can tell you, Albert, quickly, if I could, before Kennedy comes in, we have a total of 4,793 kilometers of new paved tarmac roads constructed, a total of 1,924 kilometers of existing dilapidated paved. It's a whole lot. I wish I could share this document with you. But the NRM government, so far that we know, is celebrating these with different, achievements here and there. Now, Kennedy, how would you, as a part of NRM, as a person who's been here over the years and seen the developments, seen the strides Uganda has made, what do you have to say of this Uganda now? Look at also today's theme. It's a very interesting one: national mindset, changing national mindset. How can we do that?
Hello, Lynn. Nice to see you. Nice to hear from you. Miriam, Albert, and everyone here. I congratulate you all for seeing this time, this day for our country, Uganda. It's a beautiful time, as much as it is challenging. So much has changed, and changed for the good. For the first time in the history of Uganda, it is very possible that you can traverse the country peacefully and very quickly. Now, what I always talk about and emphasize is that I want to be a realist, to live in the now and be realistic with what is. When we talk about independence from what? I think we needed to step back a little bit. We were colonized, and we were colonized as tribes. And by the time we liberated ourselves, we were countries. So that's a fundamental shift. Now, as a person who comes in as a leader, you have to contend with that reality, that you have to deal with people who speak different languages, who have different beliefs, and bringing those people together is a monumental task. Now, again, for the first time in the history of Uganda, Ugandans have been able to cooperate and coordinate and do business together with a very limited dose of differences at the level of tribal. And why has this happened? Largely because of good leadership under NRM. Now, we left the politics of the sectarian politics of tribes, and we emphasized the politics of progress, whereby your success has a lot to do with my success. And if you think about it, that accounts for a lot of the peace that we have enjoyed for all this time. Now, I always tell people, we can think about nuclear science, and we think about going to the heavens and back, and we can think about that. It's good. It's good to look at ourselves going that far. But the reality is, we are in Uganda, we are a third world country, and we were set up to fail. So if anything, we are digging ourselves from from the shackles of the predator. Now, I have listened to Dr. Chombori, and if there is anyone who has spelled out the agony of Africa, she has done well. And she has emphasized that quite often we get together and we chant death to African leaders as if they have the magic bullet for the mess that has befallen Africa. But the reality of the matter is there is a lot of underhand work that has bedeviled Africa, that has set us off course quite often. Good leaders assassinated, bandits financed and armed. And all this time, there is not much small countries can do. For example, the United Nations Security Council was set up before African countries got independence. Even when we got independence, we are not recognized there. Imagine the whole continent of Africa that is out of this security affair of the world. And it doesn't matter how much you say, how much you express yourself as an African country, you can't break through. Now, that's a reality. And when we talk about our failings, we have to look at the whole or nothing at all. And once we do that, once we try to understand, is it the weakness of African leaders per se, or there is also much more than that? I'll give you a very recent example. President Paul Kagame and his entire government was indicted by a French judge, a local French judge. And it would have been okay if it stopped at that. But actually, it was taken on. Okay? So the question is, you can appreciate that power, that they can disorganize a country. Now, this is on the political end. If you talk about the economic part of it, when our leaders have been asking, can't we access the manufacturing of this? I saw President Museveni pleading, say, we produce coffee in the East African community. Why can't we have the processing machinery in the, if you want to help us with that so that we can process here locally? And the funding was not coming. And the reason was because someone else in the Nescafe company had taken on the processing. So again and again, you see where Africans have been blocked from opportunities, by the big powers. And this plays a big role in the majority of the things, because if you cannot finance a project that would transform a society, if you can cause instability in a country through rebellions, financing rebellions, if you can assassinate leaders, okay, who have the foresight, and we have a list of them, what does that mean for the continent in totality? So, and when we debate these things, I often caution my friends on the other side to appreciate the good, much as they are aiming for perfectionism. Because I hate to dislodge good, trying to find perfection, to be a perfect person. I would rather deal with the good in the meantime. And here in Uganda, we have arrived at the good. We are not perfect there. We are not there yet. But there is something good in Uganda. Now, we have seen it even within the economy, much as it has been devastated by COVID, but at least the productivity rate of our people had increased tremendously. The enthusiasm, to work, the involvement of women, both in politics and in business, it had shot up, for the first time ever. Now, these are real things, tangibles. So I always emphasize that we deal with what is, because short of that, you see, I once read about a story of a patient who had paranoia and was seen coming from someplace. And they asked, where are you coming from? He's like, well, I had visited my doctor, but I don't trust him. Now, you can appreciate what that means. Yes, you're paranoid, but this is your doctor. Now, still, even in the presence of your doctor, you are that paranoid that you can't trust. So when you look at Uganda, Uganda has been the America of Africa. Okay. And believe it or not, it's a beautiful thing. When you see everyone coming to Uganda and not wanting to leave, we should be very, very, very optimistic about the beauty and the future of Uganda. Because it just, you do a social experiment, you come running around the corner and scream. Just say something that compels people to believe that something has scared you from where everybody will run. Even when they don't know what has happened, they will follow. They will run with you, running away from something they don't even know. Now, when you see everybody coming to Uganda, there is a reason why someone who runs away from everywhere in Africa wants to set shop in Uganda. So for me as a Ugandan, I look at that and say, wow, this is beautiful. Because the truth of the matter is, there is someone from Congo who has stayed in Uganda, and if you ask them to leave Uganda, they will scream the same way we saw people screaming here in New York, or in Washington, or in California, not wanting to go back. So that is good for Uganda. And there is no way you can flip it around to mean anything other than the peace, the attraction that Uganda has expressed to the world. So these are the realities of our time. And yes, we need to look forward, to look for better things. But the roads that Albert was talking about, these are real roads that are taking businesses, that are taking people, taking tourism, across the country. So how else can you put it? They are working. And the truth of the matter is, we must appreciate our background. We look at the weaknesses we have today, which are many. But at the same time, we recognize that every day, like as a matter of fact, you journalists have a lot of work to do. I think you need to take people from the crime scene into the courts, because quite often Ugandans have been fed a lot of crime scenes, and we are never taken all through to how the judges, expend justice. How do they penalize these people? For example, there were people killing in Masaka. Hello.
Kennedy, yes, go on.
Yes, there were people killing in Masaka. And I think that was the man called Chidawarimia or something, that group. I remember I never knew what happened until I saw that they ran away from the courts in Masaka. So I had never even heard a story that they were arrested. You see? So guess what? Even when they ran, there were no journalists in Masaka at the court.
Kennedy, I need you to wind up.
Oh, okay, yes. So as I'm winding up, all I'm saying is that we have many, many challenges. but we have a lot of success stories to talk about. And if we could emphasize that, to say, look, this is our Uganda. We have no alternative Uganda. It is the Uganda we love. And we need to talk about the beauty and the successes we have made, also recognizing our weaknesses, and the discussion will be beautiful. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Kennedy, for highlighting those very interesting achievements as a country. But I think you will agree with me that we need to stop talking about the obvious. We have moved from certain places. We can't keep saying we're enjoying the peace, we enjoy the peace when a certain few things are not going right. Human rights, for example, good leadership. There's a whole lot of people being very uncomfortable with a lot of things not going well. So I would rather see us move away from we're enjoying peace to something like there is economic prosperity here and there. Now, let me not take much of the time. I want us to give time to Francis as well as we wait for Yoga to join us because we have another conversation we need to get into. Now, Francis, you have heard from Kennedy, you've heard from Albert, you've heard from Miriam, and of course, what the president has been talking about. You at A.N.T, you as Francis was being in the diaspora for whatever time you have been there, but also as a Ugandan. We are celebrating 59 years. Are we really celebrating? Is it time to celebrate yet? Or do we have a long, long way to go? And if so, how can you and I, who are having this conversation, foster that movement? How can we move from this to a better Uganda that we all keep talking about?
Thank you, Lynn, and the other fellow panelists, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Bakasara. This is the second time I'm appearing on a talk show with him, and then Miriam Kyomugisha for coming together and discussing matters of national interest to our country. It's always important that we have such healthy conversations, but we discuss objectively. If I can first echo the preamble of our constitution, it opens with the word, we the people of Uganda. And then it goes further, if I can quote, recalling our history, which has been characterized by political and constitutional instability, recognizing our struggles against the forces of tyranny, oppression, and exploitation. And then we commit ourselves as Ugandans. But now currently, at 59, the question is, the Uganda that is being operated, is it a we Uganda or a Uganda for a few people? That is a question that perhaps Kennedy and the current ruling government would tell us. Are we still operating as we, as Ugandans, or Uganda is for a selected few? Now, if I come back to the current, why we are here, Uganda at 59, if I use developmental psychology, there are certain milestones in growth and development that from such and such a time to this, you expect a child to behave or a person to behave in X, Y, Z. And from the age of 1 year, when Uganda was 1 year old, up to now at the age of 59, there are certain milestones that we expect that we should have reached. Now, when Mr. Kennedy comes and or the president begins telling people, which is okay, what they have achieved, and echoing peace and so on and so forth, people can move peacefully. I just use the analogy of a parent. If you find a father, every time he comes to a home and is telling his wife, I'm your husband, and is telling the children, I'm your father, you know there is a problem. Because if a father, you do your father role, automatically children will know that you are the father. You don't need to always tell them. If you play your role as a husband, your wife will know you are the husband, but not constantly reminding him. Now, having said that, Bakasara rose a good point that it's not just a matter of numbers that you count. There are roads that have been constructed. Mr. Kennedy was saying, which is a good thing, that you can move with ease from point A to point Z. But the question is, what kind of movement? Kennedy was also saying that we are proud to host so many refugees and they don't want to leave. Really? I don't think that that is progress. That because you can host the refugees, some of them will apply for them, by the way, because there is an economic attachment. So I think at this stage, we should be having a Uganda that is working for everybody, not a few individuals. A Uganda that is respecting human rights. That's why we said that against the forces of tyranny, oppression, and exploitation, the Uganda that does not see most of our youth taking themselves into slavery in the Middle East. And some of them, it is perpetrated by the traders who are trading in human beings. Nobody has come to follow up the suffering that is taking place. In Afghanistan, when the Taliban captured power, most other countries were struggling to go and rescue their citizens who are there. What did Uganda do? What did it say? Are those Ugandans part of we, or we don't mind about our people? So in most cases, I would say, Mr. Kennedy, when we are in the diaspora in some of these countries like the US, enjoying maybe the peace, enjoying the infrastructure that people have put there, and we talk from a privileged point of view, and we say Uganda is okay, I think we need to begin changing that narrative. Yes, I agree we have made some strides as a country, but is it significant? Is it comparable to, for example, other countries who also attained independence at the same time with us? You echoed that the president was urging other countries to allow us access the technology to maybe manufacture, for this case, COVID. I also had him talk during the World Health Summit, and then recently during the UN conference, I think in New York, he was talking and complaining about that. But the very Museveni at the beginning of coronavirus was saying how they have manufactured the medicine and even launched some. I still remember his scientists and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, he flips and then says, because the other time I had said, yes, we are independent. If in Uganda they are manufacturing the PCR and so on, they are doing this, they are almost, he was saying, just wait in just a few months, we shall have discovered or made our own vaccines. That was good. But from here, you know, that is the Museveni. That's what he keeps repeating himself over and over and over and over. Like you can see the Operation Wealth Creation, how it has kept changing from time to time to economic, independence. Operation Wealth Creation, now to Myoga, now to securing our future. I don't know the future of who, and maybe a few are selected people that I have mentioned. But for us, as Alliance for National Transformation, we still believe that the situation in Uganda is not good. Because if you look at how the dissenting voices are being silenced, then you can't say that people have independence or Uganda has grown up to 59 years. How does a 59-year-old behave towards his children, towards his grandchildren, towards his neighbor? Does Uganda measure up to that? I think we are still lacking and we need to do a lot. Now, if you look at theft at an industrial scale of public funds, the good thing, look at the coronavirus, the pandemic, how it was handled in Uganda. To most of the people, it turned into a fortune. I'm glad Bakasara talked about a generation is going to be lost. Just schools have remained closed. But are there strategic moves to have these schools opened so that these our children, a generation is not lost? But people who talk from a privileged point of view, either their children are in international schools, they are not missing, or some of them who are in government planning, they no longer have children in school. Their children have grown up businessmen. And does that make sense to us? Are we still talking about we, the people of Uganda? Or we are talking about the few people? By the way, I almost think that, Uganda at first, and most of the African countries, like for example, the Imperial British East African Company came purposely for trade. And then all of a sudden, then Uganda becomes a British protectorate. Miriam talked about that. And then from there, then we say we have gained independence. But was Uganda changing from Imperial British East African Company to another now kind of company that currently is also exploiting Uganda and Ugandans on an industrial scale? We have to look at all these things. Then we also look at corruption. Look at corruption. For us as A.N.T, we are concerned. A country cannot develop with such a level of corruption, where even people just loot, people commit crime and nobody will talk because they have good connections, the government, or they are the people who are in control of everything. Such a things at independence, we have to see what is it that we are showing. Is it at independence that we have good democratic values? Is it at independence? I'm happy to hear from Canada. At independence, yes, we are showing roads. But roads going where? Is it to a particular area or the whole of Uganda is covered? Because we have to do all this. Generally, if you say there is economic prosperity in Uganda, you can see it in people. You don't need to talk about it. You just go to every village, or you will see just the way how people are progressing. But is it what we have? The answer is no. Look at it. I have talked about education. Look at agriculture. What happened when Kenya resented that we should no longer export our maize? Was it a political game? Was it an economic game?
That is an invalid telephone number. Please enter the telephone number you wish to dial now.
So all these have to come into play. And we ask ourselves, are we in a mess? Are we independent? And I would argue...
You have 27 minutes remaining for this call. Thank you for using Boss Revolution.
So I would argue, my brother Kennedy, that when we are talking about independence at this time and where the world is, we should relate it in what is happening globally. We should know, is it independence in terms of technology? Is it independence in terms of our economy? All these things should come into play. And we should stop blaming that people, they are setting us to fail and so on. Sometimes our leadership has issues that we have to sort out. For sure, the NRM government has achieved what they have achieved, but there is still a lot to do, that we have to transition from one government to another to realize, Uganda, we build. I'm not saying that if A.N.T comes into power, we'll solve all the problems, but at least we shall also add a building block, because how NRM has played its part, and we have also seen the failings in terms of democracy, the failings in terms of corruption and theft at an industrial scale. So all these things have to be addressed. And believe me, NRM right now cannot address any of these issues because they are already in what I would call political inertia. There needs to be political morality in Uganda, and that is what will make us progress, and the next coming independence celebrations will be meaningful to all Ugandans. Thank you.
Wonderful there. Thank you very much, Francis. I can see we've gotten into the second hour of this conversation, and I want to thank you very much for all your deliberations. I can't see Yoga. I think something might have happened. We really have missed him on that, because I thought he'd give us some very interesting history, especially because the UPC then was blamed for a lot of the mess that allegedly we're still trying to, clean up. Yeah, but Francis, you highlighted something that has caught my attention on saying that we need to move from the NRM and the like. I want to just brief, tell you something small here. Uganda is the only country in East Africa, actually East and Central Africa, that has had 9 presidents since independence. If we're to compare to other African countries in the same region, which have had 3 or 4 presidents since independence, even when most of them achieved independence almost at the same time in the 1960s. So I think we need to not only look at what NRM has done or has failed to do, but look at Uganda in general. Look at Uganda since 1962 when we got independence, and let us appreciate the baby steps we have taken. But thank you very much, Francis. I understand, Albert, you have to leave us quite early. I don't know if you still have time, but if you do, I would be very glad if you still have time with us. But allow me, we have missed out on Yoga, but now that time is running, allow us to get into the other interesting conversation of Uganda's image abroad and its human rights record. Albert, if you're still with us, I'm very, very glad.
I am. Yes.
Perfect. But I will start with you on Uganda's image abroad. The other day, the president mentioned that people abroad only make noise and you don't know what is on ground. And you think, you think because you're abroad, you have arrived, you know what's happening. You keep, making noise about things you probably have no idea about. And some of you allegedly, yes, this I quote, that most of you have migration issues. That's why you make unnecessary noise. Now, if you could, Albert, delve into that quickly. Uganda's image abroad. Why don't we have a clear picture as Ugandans here? And those of you abroad, why don't you have a clear picture of what's happening on ground?
Well, thank you so much. And that's a very important question. I can't get into a direct debate with the head of state who's not even on our forum. And honestly, he should desist from these kind of talks. I don't know, maybe it comes with old age, but he should, because Ugandans abroad, we are the ambassadors of Uganda, whether he likes or not. The former embassy here in Washington, I live about 25 minutes away from Washington, from the embassy in Washington, D.C. It's staffed with 9 people. When I call a party in my house in good times, I would have more than 50 people in my basement. So everywhere we go, we are the ambassadors of Uganda. So this idea that the president diminishes our status or talks disparagingly about us, how we have immigration problems. Well, I'm Albert Bakasara. I don't know about others. I don't have immigration problems. I work for the federal government, have security clearance. Okay, I can travel wherever. So those are the kind of things that really tick us off as Ugandans living abroad. Okay, we are here. We have been steadfastly supporting Uganda and our sisters, our brothers, our families. We have businesses. We are homeowners. We pay school fees. We buy medicine for our aunties and uncles. We really buttress the economy of Uganda, and he knows that. So, but of course, he has people here who feed him information, and that's the information he likes to hear. For example, there's a huge people power movement in North America. It is there and it's real. But you know what they told the president? Oh, they were supported by homosexuals. They are there. They have immigration problems. They just make noise. When they fundraise and their money and invite the likes of Chagulanyi, or Chagulanyi is being supported by the homosexuals. I have seen these young people. I don't belong to people power, but I have seen these young people solicit money. They have sent me their fundraising drives. I have seen them account for those fundraisers, and I have seen them collect enough money to buy a ticket for the Chagulanyi to travel. So when you hear the president and his advisors talking about, oh, the enemies of Uganda are supporting people power, who are the enemies of Uganda? I work for the federal government. There are several other Ugandans who work in high-ranking places. Who are these people? I interact with them. Who are these people? I interact with the ambassador here and the embassy staff. Who are these enemies that they keep talking about of Uganda? Changing the mindset, like he wants to. You are not going to change my mind as the ambassador. Like I said, we're the ambassadors of Uganda. The way you change my mind is you start doing right by my people who are still in Uganda. And let me bring this directly, because I don't like talking in abstract. This morning, when I was about to log on here, I sent a message to one of my nieces, my favorite niece. I can say that, because I'd like to mentor this young woman. She's still in college. I think she's doing her master's. An NRM diehard. She's an NRM youth leader in Kabarole. About at the height of the elections, of the past elections in Uganda, a bullet whizzed by her ear, and she spent about 2 weeks traumatized in the house. This is an NRM youth leader. She was on a border. There was some little kavuyo, and bullets started flying, and one of them whizzed by her ear. So in talking to her and trying to have her understand what is happening in Uganda, and then you hear about the peace and security that NRM keeps singing, why is that necessary? Why is a bullet whizzing past my niece's ear? Why? Because somebody is traveling in a convoy campaigning? There are things that we can do. Mr. Burashe can talk about the impediments that the colonial powers left behind, and you, Komugisha, you can tell us about the strides we've made. But again, like you said, you introduced me as a numbers guy. When I look at the numbers guy, I have when I'm looking at numbers, we have baselines, we have measures, and then we have aspirations. I'll call them. What was our baseline in 1962? What was our baseline in 1986 when Mr. Museveni took office? What was the population then? What's the population now? Where was the rest of the country? we don't stand in isolation. Okay, I saw some good Nigerian video. Somebody was talking about Dubai and United Arab Emirates, and somebody said, "Oh, he was comparing Nigeria to United Arab Emirates, talking about, look where we are. It's a desert, has nothing, not blessed with any natural resources. Leadership matters. Good leadership matters." We saw that. We saw a glimpse of that in the 90s, in the 80s, when this government was actually in a revolutionary mode and actually working for the people. We saw that. Things have changed. Maybe Mr. Museveni thinks really that we don't have something to contribute to the country. But that's why probably they're giving us these visa restrictions and other kinds of stuff they're putting on us now as foreigners living outside Uganda. But I think the proper way to look at the role of the diasporans is to look at them as stakeholders in Uganda, and we are stakeholders. And the fact that we are the ambassadors of the country, and you want to alienate us, what good news am I going to give? We're blessed with this beautiful accent. Every time I'm in a meeting and I open my mouth to talk, the first question I get was, "Where are you from?" Because the Americans here don't believe that I'm fully American, even though I carry an American passport. So if the Ugandans also, like the president also don't think I'm Ugandan, where do I belong? You have to embrace me. You have to entice me. You have to show me the good things that are happening, and so I can be able to sell Uganda. And we are willing to sell Uganda. We're celebrating Uganda. Like I said, I don't want to get into a back and forth with the president who is absent here, but he really should get better advisors. These are important conversations, and he has great cadres. Why they always choose the corrupt and intellectually bankrupt ones to be the representatives of Uganda or the spokespeople of Uganda, I have no idea. Pick intelligent people. The Kennedys can engage in these conversations. I mean, we might disagree, but at least we're having a conversation. Than being the president being fed with these lies. Oh, the Ugandans abroad, they don't like you. They're talking ill and evil about Uganda. Well, there are those who are doing that, and they have their reasons. Find out why they're doing that. But there are those who are us and are talking. You just had me invite Mr. Kennedy Burashe for a picnic. That as a community organizer here in the Washington, D.C. area, we're organizing with some of our friends. Some of them are people power. And we're organizing a community to celebrate our independence. We've invited the ambassador. We're playing a soccer game. It's going to be good. So when you tell us, oh, they are over there about, who are you talking about? Because I don't know.
Albert, apologies, allow me to interrupt you, but there's something recently, now that we're talking about Uganda's human rights record, recently when some members of parliament who were arrested were released and later rearrested, there was a boycott, an opposition boycott in parliament. That is one. Two, the president emphasized, let me actually get this right, he emphasized renewed his decade-old push to scrap bail for suspected capital offenders, prompting constitutional experts to warn that the move could boomerang since it threatens the presumption of a suspect's innocence until proven guilty. I need to pick your mind on those two issues, Albert, before you can leave. What is your take on this?
It's one of those things, again, that make our job as ambassadors of Uganda hard to sell our country and the good things that you've all been talking about that we would like to sell. Because the presumption of innocence is really at the center of justice. You have to remember the justice that we employ in Uganda is one that we imported from the British. And America also, having at one time been a British colony, or an amalgamation of British colonies, most of them, also brought in that justice system. It's at the core. If we've borrowed this thing, then we might as well borrow the guidelines that make it work. And bail is one of them. I don't think the president, he himself, if he was arrested today, I don't think he would agree with that there shouldn't be bail. He would want that. He would want that presumption of innocence. He's saying that now because he has all the powers. He's saying that now because he does not envision anyone else coming into power tomorrow. These are the things. I mean, you guys. I mean, you're in Uganda. You're on the ground. I only come and visit and leave. We've seen these things. You remember Mr. Mama Mbaba's, the former prime minister, championing the public management law. A couple of years later, it was the same law that was used to harass him and his campaign. So be aware of these things. We should not be encroaching on people's human rights. Okay, the president should work hard to make the work of Ugandans, especially for us who are living outside Uganda. If you really want a good image out here, we are the ambassadors of Uganda. I'm going to keep singing that. The staff of 9 people that you have to represent you in a population of over 300 million people, Americans here, doesn't work. You are left with the Kamhandas, with the Bakasaras, with the Burashes to represent you. And I can only represent you from my personal perspective of how I feel about what you're doing. There are things that are not in our control in Uganda, but there are things that are within the government of Uganda's control. Corruption, civil rights, justice. We can do these things. This soft bigotry of low expectations. Oh, we are Ugandans, we are Africans, or we are left a bad lot. Now we are digging ourselves out of a hole. The shackles that Kennedy is talking about. We have sung that song for so long. We need to rest it. We need to pull our boots and actually do the right thing by ourselves and by our people. We need to do this. Okay, so I thank you, and I'm going to stay with you because this is a very important conversation.
Right.
I'll stay on here. I managed to do some of the things that I wanted to do last night, so I can give you guys time. Thank you so much.
That's very good. Thank you very much, and thank you for that input. Now over to you, Miriam. You have heard from Albert, and you have been following up on Uganda's image and, of course, its human rights record. But before you can come on, recently there was a demonstration at the UN General Assembly by the new supporters, and the government came forward to say that these supporters actually they were branded as people who have nothing to do, really. Whatever they were doing is like winking at a girl in the dark. This is quoting from somebody who wrote, one Godwin Agaba. That was the title of the article he wrote. But what caught my attention is, what is the role of foreign protests? This is not the first time. We've had a number of them across the globe. Ugandans protesting against human rights violations. How important are they? Do they complement anything here on ground? And do they really make any impact even when they go on like that? And also, Miriam, I would like for you to comment on the recent debate of on bail. You know, it's an ongoing conversation that is still very hard to come around here on ground. Scrapping bail is one of those things the president has continuously talked about. But again, the judiciary is stuck because he couldn't, the president and of course his chief justice, could not agree to the same, to that very notion. What do you have to say on that, Miriam?
Ms. Komugisha, first of all, let's talk about the demonstrations in diaspora. We see them everywhere, like you said, from South Africa all the way in Netherlands, USA. And recently there were hundreds of Ugandans demonstrating against the violation of human rights in the UN General Assembly when Seven was also one of the participants as the president of Uganda. This demo, you see, by the time a person goes to protest, they are saying no about something, and all other means of solving it have failed. And they are just protesting to anybody who can listen to them. If the things were working and there was no violence in Uganda, there were no abuse of human rights, there were no issues making people protest, there wouldn't be a protest, and maybe there would be a celebration. Maybe there would be like when Museveni was, maybe there would be a business forum meeting. Maybe there would be dancing and drinking and celebrating Uganda independence instead of instead of protesting against human rights violations. That's what Ugandans want to see. Ugandans in diaspora want to see a prospering Uganda back home. Like Albert said, how can you sit and stay calm when people are suffering at home? The people who are being arrested, the people who are being shot on the streets, the people who are being kidnapped are our sisters and brothers. And the government back home, there is nothing you can do about them. Like the president has said, is now trying even to push the little space that is there for freedom and say he's going to abolish the bail applications. So he takes over all the justice space that would be for people who the government is persecuting. Those people who are in prison are political prisoners. None of them has a case. Like if you want to follow, nobody has been found by any court guilty of anything. How many people were arrested? Thousands. What is their crime? Supporting opposition. Says, is that a crime in Uganda? What are their rights? Are we a democratic government? Is there any member of NUP who has been charged in court for any case and found guilty? Has FDC, previous political prisoners of FDC, UPC, DP ever found guilty of any of their crimes being charged against them? Kizza Besigye was charged for rape, which never existed, treason, which has never existed. Actually, he even on record for having the highest number of court cases in history ever. And what is his case? Opposing NRM politics. Is that a crime in Uganda? No, but it's a crime against Museveni or whatever he thinks. Those are the violations of, so the excesses of NRM government, which you can't even address. So the NRM government uses the judicial system, which includes the police, to persecute Ugandans who does not support NRM. Police, the security, the military, some courts, like the military, whatever court martial, I don't understand how it operates. I think, excuse my ignorance, because sometimes it's like they take people, they kidnap them, then you hear they're in safe houses, then suddenly they appear limping in the court. I don't think there is any constitutional right, there is any constitutional law which gives any institution in Uganda to do something like that to any Ugandan. So those violations of human rights, which Museveni cannot address because he's the perpetuator. So how do you address them if you don't protest against them? People protest abroad. It's like there is fire at home and you are crying to the neighbors to come and help you. What else can you do? And some of these protests have been, you see, the NRM government or a Ugandan government does not live in isolation. It works with other partners, which include governments abroad. It's part of UN. It has embassies everywhere, and it has development partners in courts. And so when you are protesting to those partners, you are telling them, hey, your friend here is doing something. Can you help us, put out this fire or just talk to him and do something? And the US government has actually had some of those protests, and there were recent sanctions against some of the perpetrators who are the security officials. But and Museveni even made a promise to investigate some of the extrajudicial murders that happened on Kampala streets in November. He made a promise to prosecute the military officials who were involved in killing Ugandans, in committing violent crimes against the Ugandans who were at that time the political opposition. But nothing has been done. So the recent protest was like, hey, you promised to do this, but you are doing nothing. Yet you sit in the global stage pretending to be a democratic leader. What type of democracy are you doing at home? It's not about speeches. If he has investigated the November murders, where are the people who were indicted for killing Ugandans? The president himself said there are no stray bullets. So whoever the security officer killed, that was intentional. They went out to murder. So who has he put in court? Where is the investigation? Any report? Doesn't he have capacity to do that? So those are the things you see, like Albert said, every Ugandan abroad, by the way, is a de facto ambassador of Uganda. There is no way if you stand there and say, hey, where do you come from? And you say from Uganda, and you're gonna say, oh, Uganda is a bad country. No, we talk so nice things that don't even exist in Uganda just to make Uganda look good. Who wouldn't say anything nice about their home? But we are crying inside. How can you smile when your brother is in prison for 100 days and he has not committed any crime apart from saying, hey, I'm not supporting NRM this time? And how are we going to address that? Nobody's talking about it. Some MPs talked and now they are also in prison. You talked about the cancellation of bail. Do you know who Museveni's suspects are? Recently in Arua, Bobi Wine was a murder suspect. He even had a gun. Do you know where that gun went? Which crime had he committed? Where did that gun come from? He was a murder suspect already, and he had a gun, and he was going to be taken in a court-martial. Then all of a sudden, the gun disappeared, the case disappeared, and everything disappeared. So those are the murder suspects that, are they the murder suspects that the president is talking about? He was tortured almost to death. He wasn't even taken to court or given bail until the international community had to complain and stood their ground, and human rights activists. That's when Museveni released Bobi Wine. If you ask me, I don't know whether he wanted to release him dead or alive or whatever, he knows. But suppose people didn't talk. Suppose there were no protests to call other people to say, hey, something bad is going on. What would have happened? What was Bobi Wine's crime? Opposing NRM in a campaign. So are those the crimes that the president is talking about? So recently I was actually betting with some government official and said, if you indict successfully, if you find the MPs who were charged guilty of anything in any of Ugandan court, I made a bet on that because I know they are being framed. And it won't be the first time, it won't be the last time. That's what NRM government does. They frame all political opponents for their own reasons. And then there are other crimes going on. We never know who assassinates leaders like the sheikhs, like the recent assassination of Katumba Wamara's daughter. We never get to see who do those things, who killed Kawesi, who killed Abiriga. Those murders are up and running, but then we have the persecution going on opposition MPs. The security somehow is very active when they are trying to cap down on opposition on NRM, but then they go dumb and inactive when it comes to real criminals. If Museveni was talking about canceling a bail of anybody who killed Benz, because he said he ordered soldiers to go and kill him, I don't know why. If he was talking about cancellation of those guys' bail, I would say, okay, maybe those are real murderers and we know who they killed. But what crime has the opposition leaders done? So I think also the cancellation of the bail is a right, and it's in our constitution, and there are due processes where those things can be debated. It's not about the president's wish, it's about what is right. Because the president has also his personal interests, which can't be in favor of every Ugandan's interest.
All right, thank you very much, Miriam. That's very interesting. I'm trying to look at time and keep us in time and make sure we don't miss out on a few very important issues. Now, Francis, I want to come to you. I intentionally want to end with Kennedy on this chapter because he's the NRM chairman. So Francis, we are looking at the protest that happened outside the UN General Assembly taking place. And of course, the president had just been speaking to the General Assembly, and he was addressing delegates about all the important subjects of vaccines and other matters, of course, of global importance. Something caught my attention that what they did was like winking at a girl in the dark. So allow me ask you again, while I ask the same question to Miriam, allow me ask you as well, are international protests, do they serve any purpose at all? Or is it the same as politicians around Uganda here keep saying that opposition only know how to make noise and that is all?
Thank you, and my fellow panelists. You know, like as I said at first, that when you see people come out and are speaking or they are protesting, don't think they have nothing to do. No, there is something wrong. And nobody, even we who are in the diaspora, wishes to come out on the streets and protest, or after your president has spoken something that you would be proud of. By the way, we are proud of our motherland, Uganda, that you would wish to come and say that much as this person is talking here, but there is a lot of that going on. So these protests will continue so long as Uganda or the people in leadership, we see that there are a lot of flaws in what they are doing. They are not respecting human rights. There are a lot of things that are going astray, like as I've said, corruption, theft at an industrial scale. People are not having the health services that they need, and so on and so forth. We shall keep echoing. That is also one way of saying, hey, look here, this is wrong. Bakasara said we are ambassadors of Uganda, and indeed we are. Our voices, in as far as selling Uganda, in terms of its goodness and so on, is much more than the people who are seated at the embassies, wherever they are. And when we come and say, hey, look here, there is X that is going wrong that needs to be addressed, it would be in the interest of the president and the people he's ruling with to correct the wrongs that we point out. But however, I do know that most of the institutions of government in Uganda are not functional. Or if they are functional, they don't have the political morality, or they have broken the commitment, the agreement that they have with the Ugandans. Because we have entrusted, or we entrusted them in governing Uganda. And in governing Uganda, they should listen to how we want to be governed, not how for them they want to govern us, or how they want to govern Ugandans. And Uganda should be aware it is not operating in isolation. Otherwise, then Uganda would not be part of the UN, maybe General Assembly, would not be part of the African Union. But because we are not operating in isolation, that's why it is a member of those all these other bodies to make a complete whole. And when we come up and say, look here, you know, by the time, I will again use the issue of the family, by the time a child moves to go and seek food from the neighbor's home, it means the mother and the father have failed to provide for that child. And it is on us or on the mother and the father to ensure that they correct themselves. Did we leave our children and we all moved without providing X, Y, and Z? And that's what we need from Uganda. For us as ambassadors, as how Bakasara said, sometimes you get hard time to sell or to explain something that people have asked us. The person will ask you, what is going on? We had this and so on and so forth. And then you're able to explain the unexplainable, something that is plain. So I believe that much as people are thinking that these are jokes, we have nothing to do, we are disgruntled people, we are not. We are not. that one, it should be clear. We are not disgruntled people, but we are people who are concerned about how affairs of our country are being run. And let's go back to, members have talked about the bail. Now, if you see, for example, I'm sorry, Bakasara said we should not push on the president who is not on this panel, but we shall still, because everything rests in him, on him, I mean. Look at a situation where Museveni has become an expert. He's running Uganda as a home. Yes, I do know that he has the responsibility of running and making decisions on behalf of all Ugandans, because if Ugandans entrusted him with that responsibility. But look at a situation where, for example, can we safely reopen schools? The Minister of Education has experts, but guess what? They said that decision will be made by the president. The issue is, what are the experts doing? What are you advising? And every time even experts go to Museveni, including those in the Ministry of Health, I think even doctors, if they went to Museveni on, okay, we have a problem, this person needs an operation to operate the kidney. Should we operate? Museveni is the one to advise on that. That no, do this and this. So he has become like an expert on everything. Generally, he's like mechanic. He's a coachman of Europe. You have seen other countries coming and then he's flipping charts, teaching them. But you are teaching what you are not implementing in your country? Seriously? Yeah? So I think that people should know that not every person in the diaspora is disgruntled or has immigration issues or is a fugitive. No, we are not. They should count how much remittances Uganda earns from people who are in the diaspora. So generally, we should have I think a minister, since Museveni gives, we should have a ministry in charge of our affairs. Maybe we should have also a member of parliament in charge of the diaspora. It's a big constituency, by the way, and which communicates sense. But because we don't have a listening voice, I mean a listening person to say, what are they saying? What are they contributing to the national development of Uganda? So not until we reach there, some of these protests to show there is something that is not right, they will continue to be manifested. And it is so unfortunate. It is so unfortunate, but we have to see how we come and debate. And I would also say that for sure, the people who feed the president with lies, that, these people, all people in the diaspora, they don't love you. Maybe they are talking ill about Uganda. If we are all, or if the diaspora decided to talk ill about Uganda, generally the government would collapse. I'm telling you, government would collapse. But we always struggle to, why should all people in the diaspora remit funds if they know they don't love Uganda, if they know they don't want Uganda to progress? This is simple logic that we can talk about. Now, when you look at the abuse, the gross abuse of human rights, for example, denial of giving people bail, which is a constitutional right, it goes back to the weakness of government. the institution that I'm talking about. Let us assume, okay, where is the intelligence services that by the time you are arresting me, or even if I spend a week in prison, you have already gathered enough evidence. So, and by the time I'm paraded in court, bring it over. Now, if you have not done that, and then court is doing its obligation that Francis should get bail as government prepares or whatever its evidence, and then you say no. So almost Museveni is the state and the state is himself. The law is legal because he wishes so. That's where we have reached. But otherwise he should go back. I always like to use an analogy. One day a man lost a coin in his bedroom and he searched, he could not find the coin. So he went on the street and called friends. So they stood on the street's light and started searching for a coin. Friends asked friend, we have looked for a coin here on the street light, we can't find it. Where did you lose the coin? The man said, in my bedroom. And then they asked, why are we then on the street light? He said, because there is more light here, we can see and look for the coin. So Museveni should also not blame the people who are applying and being given and granting bail. The problem is the rot within his government. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Francis, for that very fantastic deliberation there. The comments and on social media, of course, on Twitter, as well as I'm seeing comments here in our chat room that I'm going to, before I can invite Kennedy on, as we wind up, we have about 15 minutes. So Albert goes on to say that these protests have an impact. Even those dismissing them know it. Let me ask, if they had no impact at all, then why does the government of Uganda spend money on lobbyists in the US to counter them? He also says these protests, both public and private ones, have led to sanctions against many Ugandan government and security officials. There's one from Tom Katsabe says, Katsabe actually, apologies, Tom Katsabe says, any effort helps, progress is slow progress, and then says bringing down the system requires all fronts. The diaspora and people at home have different roles to play. Oh, thank you very much. There are also legal limitations, if I could finish with this one, there are also legal limitations to diaspora real engagement. Look at the dual citizenship laws. They are designed to limit or make it literally impossible, therefore limiting real engagement. Thank you very much, gentlemen, there for that, for those highlights. Now, Kennedy, over to you. We are looking at the image abroad and we have very few minutes. I would want for you to summarize a few things. We're looking at our human rights record, but also looking at the image abroad. What role are you people abroad playing? And we have seen the president is against bail, which is one of those important human rights. It is in the Constitution, but he has been having a back and forth with the judiciary over that. We are looking at the role of protests abroad. There have been a number of them. Are they playing any roles at all? Are they helping in any way? And you as NRM, when all this happens, why do you always hit back instead of embracing all that and perhaps sitting down to find solutions to those problems? Instead, you want to silence that. And I think that's the concern that Miriam, that Albert, and of course, Francis have raised. So Kennedy, over to you.
Thank you. Certainly there is a lot that has been covered, a lot of ground that I wish I could go, through all that, but for purposes of time. Now, I listened to a story once upon a time that one gentleman was slapped and he went to court and he wanted to demonstrate the size of the slap. And he told the court in Runyankore, he was like, now, if you think about that, the court was writing, putting it down. Now, you are not given a slap, you are hit by thunder. You can appreciate that he was trying to express, the velocity of the slab. Now, but by doing that, he missed a point. And here, what I'm trying to say is that we have problems, but they are not thunderous. So we can talk about them for what they are and debate them for what they are. But when you see these people demonstrating, and to make matters worse, I have seen, my friend Francis there talking about that we love Uganda, and truly, you love Uganda. But when you demonstrate and say that aid to Uganda should be cancelled, now that aid is not going to President Museveni as a person, because we have seen across the board that leaders will survive regardless. We saw it in Zimbabwe, we've seen it everywhere. Now, when you go through that, why would you, if you care for Uganda, why would you beg that the international community cancels, aid to Uganda? And then we talked about that some Ugandans, for political and military officials, were banned from travel. But you see, we also have to go back to the historical context that I talked about. When I talked about Rwanda government being indicted, these people will do these things for their own interest, not because the Ugandan demonstrated in New York or in Washington. No, they also have their own part, their own agenda. So if you get lost in that, you are missing a point. Now, when you talk about bail, for example, it is unfortunate that, yes, we inherited these laws, we adapted them, and we are using them. But it is unfortunate that we want to sit still and not care to look at the weaknesses they are in. For example, the president has said that we are in Uganda. And like I said, I live in reality, where people don't understand the workings of the law. For example, someone raped a kid of 2 years and the villagers saw the person do it. Now, they have to be taken to police, and then the next day, the person is back. And he's looking for this kid who will be in court to testify, perhaps to threaten the kid or to threaten the parents. So these villagers will not be told about bail because they don't know what that bail means. So the president is looking at the bigger picture, at the whole. He's not just picking and choosing. He's looking at the whole. What does this represent for the people of Uganda? Because we are where we are as a country. Now, when we appreciate that reality, the president comes in to say, okay, if you murdered a person and there is not sufficient, but enough reason to say you are a suspect, because they are not picking on each and every person in Uganda. They are picking on those particular persons. Now, for example, we have members of parliament, the two members of the opposition who are in jail. Why them, for goodness sake? What went wrong with them particularly? Because if it was going about all the opposition, we would have more than two, I would think. But for what it's worth, like the president said, it would be incumbent on those who love those people to say, you know what, stand strong, defend yourselves, present your case. But here, we are being dismissive of the reality that people died, and some people think that once suspected, you are half in, you see, you are half in. And we need to appreciate that. But also to say bail is not what some people think it actually is. This is the discretion of the judge. And the president is saying, look, don't be casual with your discretion. Don't be easy, with letting loose. At least, cause some seriousness, okay, about murder, about rape, and the thuggery and the stealing of public funds. So the president was very specific. He was not going broadly, carelessly. No, he's saying these are serious issues of our society. Okay, because we have to consistently look at the whole. What does this represent to the majority of Ugandans? How do they perceive it? And we as leaders, how can we incorporate this language of the law to mean well for everybody? I think that's the debate. And but when we flip these stories, for personal, for group benefits, it loses, the whole story. Now, I always give, and Lynn, you talked about that. I talked about the usual, security, roads, blah, blah. But you see, when you go to the doctor, for example, the nurse will do the first thing, which will check your vital signs. Okay, because it is the vital signs that will give the doctor, the beginning. If your temperature is high, if your blood pressure is this, if your pulse is this, if all these things are critical because they are the baselines. They decide where the doctor should look at. So if you arrive in a country where there is no peace, where security is off, definitely that matters. Because if you're sitting in Washington, you are an investor, you're looking at the map of the world. And what do you ask for? Is there running water? Are there roads? Is there security for my investment? All these things matter. So for me, as a movement cadre, when I come here and tell you that security, because you see, security cannot be referenced as a yesterday affair. It's a continuous story. It is a constant. Some things could be variables, but this is a constant. So when I pride myself and the president and Uganda about the success story of the security, it matters a great deal. Agriculture depends on security. Everything we do on a daily depends on it. So it matters. Now, I think it was Francis who talked about the shifting president who brings NADS, then from NADS to Bonabagagaware. Then now, still, I'll give, I think I went off. Hello.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It is Francis who said that the president shifts from one thing to another thing to another thing. Now, guess what? I'll still give you what happens to when you go to the doctor. He'll give you a Panadol and say, take this Panadol for a week. If it doesn't work, come back. And then he will prescribe another medication above the Panadol, and until he figures out what works. You could just present yourself and say, you know what? You are a doctor. Give me what works. Period. Don't guess. Don't go around it. But what happens is they'll give you that Panadol. If it doesn't work, you'll come back, and they will check you again and prescribe another medication. Similarly, the president has been working with all these things, but the cardinal point here is he has been attempting to do good. Now we cannot dismiss the intention, because here the intention matters. What is he trying to do? So
Kennedy, I'm sorry to cut you short. We're running out of time. I need you to finalize, actually give us your closing remarks.
Very, very quickly. And when you go to the bail affair, still it goes on these transnational crimes. When someone started plotting in some place of the world and they arrive in Uganda and commit a crime. Now, if he kills people, definitely you cannot gather all this information in the limited space of 24 hours, So, and when we arrive at this point in time, we say, look, what can we do to incorporate all these things that are happening, And that's the debate. It's not a bad debate. It's not a bad question to ask, can we, adjust? Can we modify? Because if we have to live successfully, we have to appreciate modification. There was no internet once upon a time. There is internet now. There are internet crimes, and if the constitution didn't cover that, should we leave it out or should we incorporate it? So similarly, there were things that happened before that, obsolete now, and we have to keep on For example, if you talk about us in the diaspora, you know, and I wanted to say this in closing, it is an imperative that we separate those people who demonstrate and the rest of the majority, you know, who are in the diaspora, who are just doing what they are supposed to do, doing good. Not to say that those who demonstrate don't have a point, but they don't have to exaggerate. They don't have to beg for cancellation of aid to Uganda because aid works for Ugandans. And I pray that we keep talking about Uganda, we keep loving Uganda, and we keep debating issues of Uganda. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kennedy. As we wind up, gentlemen and ladies who've joined us, thank you very much. Allow me read this comment from social media by Yoga Adhola, who we missed him, unfortunately. He says, Museveni does not need a good image in the US. Uganda is an outpost of US imperialism. There is no way the US is going to do anything against Museveni. There were several comments. Let me see if I can jump on some of them. Otherwise, thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies, for being part of this conversations. There was somebody who said, yes, certainly I would be, he was replying to a question he posed. He says, the topic is super spot on, but next time discuss Uganda at 59, Uganda's image in the eyes of citizens. Why abroad first? Charity begins at home before outsiders and foreigners meet us or hear about us. We ought to be polished enough. And then, of course, the EDCCG said, people on the call are Ugandans in diaspora trying to explain what is going on, connecting with Ugandans in Uganda. And Professor Dominic Biarugaba is one who was writing, he said, certainly I'll be there. Inception seminars based on that unilateral topic, by levels of age to build a critical mass and enhance representative numbers would have complemented the understanding of dynamics across the board. And if it was done, thank you. Let me see if we have any other comments. I don't know, Miriam, did you come across any other comments that you could share with us?
Much, but maybe we missed Yoga Adhola because we wanted that background and UPC participation in ushering in independence in Uganda.
Absolutely.
But due to technical issues, but next time maybe we will have him. The only comments we had are like the questions I posted for Mr. Kennedy on the chat, if you can see.
Okay. Okay, Miriam, also conclusively, what are your concluding remarks as we wind up?
I think the Uganda independence, the Uganda nation building process is work in progress. We shouldn't be like saying, hey, we have arrived. We still have a long way to go, but so far so good. We should also don't underestimate the achievements we've made so far as a country. It's not about the leadership. There is no government without people. There is no Uganda without Ugandans. So we should congratulate ourselves so far for the job well done. We've been through a lot of violence, a lot of political turmoil, but we still have a lot to go. For instance, I would like to see a peaceful handover of power and life goes on. I would like to see an independent electoral commission and any election which is not rigged in Uganda. That's still a big challenge that has not happened so far. I would like to see a Uganda where opposition is treated as Ugandans. There is no crime in being opposition. Actually, they are partners with the ruling government. They are alternative government. They are like benchmarkers. They're like controllers for the government not to really stray off or to ignore a certain interest of a certain group of people. So those are things, those are still hurdles we are yet to cross. Economic challenges, big and large. We have a young population which is struggling with getting means of survival. and that is very urgent. We recently had issues with COVID, which we have overcome, thank God. So far, so good. And if the immunization, the vaccination happens and the schools are open, things are okay. At least they are looking positive compared to other countries. And we should thank God for that. And the government really, I mean, they are having challenges, but they also did a good job.
Okay.
So for the image abroad, thanks, Kennedy, for sharing those highlights. Nobody's an enemy of Uganda. We love Uganda, but we will love a good Uganda.
All right, thank you, Miriam. Francis, conclusively, your concluding remarks.
Oh, thank you, Lynn, and our viewers and those who are listening in, and then my fellow panelists. I would say that indeed, Uganda is a good country and the Pearl of Africa. But to many Ugandans, as we celebrate this 59th independence, they would love to see a Uganda that has self-rule, that is meant to, or design pro-people policies and addresses injustices in any of the forms. Although, unfortunately, the current government, much as it has achieved what it set to achieve, but we find it has fallen short of silencing voices of people who want to advise government, plundering of public resources, lack of respect of human rights and life, at some point, no rule of law, because sometimes everything spins on the president, limited investment in health, education, agriculture, massive unemployment among the youth, among others, land grabbing, nepotism. All these are just hallmarks of the NRM regime. But we would like, as Alliance for National Transformation, we call upon all Ugandans that as we celebrate the 59th independence of our country, all Ugandans of goodwill to join forces together in liberating our country. And we are committed to continue working with all actors within Uganda and outside Uganda to ensure that we go back and recommit ourselves and we begin talking of we Ugandans. We create a Uganda that works for everybody. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Francis. Now be reminded that the debate continues. Thank you, Miriam, for that reminder. The debate continues on all social media handles and, of course, pages and the rest, and will be uploaded on YouTube, hashtag, that is at Civic Space TV on YouTube. Yes, you can follow the channel. And of course, the conversation continues. This has only just started. I feel like there's lots of places, lots of corners we have not tackled. And I would really be glad if we continued these conversations. I've liked the interaction on Twitter. Over to you, Albert, in your concluding remarks, as we call this a wonderful 59.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And really, my concluding remarks is to thank you. And again, as Francis mentioned, this is the second time I'm a panelist, and maybe the third or fourth time that I'm attending. I think I attended one, but I think it was organized by you guys, but I'm not sure. But these conversations are so important, and we need to keep them going. As Lynn, as you mentioned, you quoted the president and the dismissal of even some in Uganda and some NRM cadres here who are dismissing the people who are on the opposing sides or the protesters, as you mentioned. Some of them, it's like winking in the dark. Those things are happening because we're not talking to each other. If Godwin, who has recently really joined the mainstream diaspora community to know what is happening, if he had been alert and available for all those years, he would have known that those protests actually do work. And at least my brother Kennedy, is aware of some of the things that have of the impact they've had. They have cancelled loans to Uganda. Yeah. They have. It has happened that somebody has, a group of people have approached lenders and they have cancelled loans to Uganda. It can happen. They have cancelled trips. They have cancelled visas. They've put people on no-fly lists. These things do happen because the idea that the Ugandans have, especially our leaders, that and Ugandans overall, and because what Ugandans do, and now the leadership is doing, is to dismiss us as people in the diaspora. We have names, good names for us, like Bakadama, Kubacheyo, whatever you do, they're non-dignifying. Once you look at us that way, it is easy to think that whatever we do doesn't have an impact. But I am here to tell you, and I do disagree with Kennedy, that you cannot isolate the people who are demonstrating in New York and say, oh, no, those are hooligans, leave them there, because they're not. I'm going to leave this panel and I'm going to prepare and drive our chicken and stuff to a picnic. One of the leaders from this area is Dr. Kauma, a noob, passionate guy. He was in New York. Now he's going to help me, and we're going to meet with the ambassador and the community, and we're going to celebrate Uganda's independence. So how do you isolate that and say, oh, leave the New Yorkers there? For us, let's keep doing what we're doing. We're one and the same, and that's what I wanted to emphasize. We are Uganda's ambassadors. Wherever I am, when somebody asks me, oh, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Uganda. They're going to bring a story that they've heard about Uganda. Many years when I've been here for over 25 years. In those old days, they used to talk about Idi Amin. Oh, Idi Amin is Uganda. And then you'd explain to them, oh, no, Amin left, now we have Museveni. Okay, now the narrative has changed. It's, oh, Museveni is Uganda. Is that guy still the president? And then we have to explain. Okay, so those are the things that are happening. So for the idea that you guys and now the leadership is dismissing us that, oh, we have no impact, we do have a lot of impact. We would like to keep having the positive impact, and we will need the country's help in that. We don't need stories. I can't sell Uganda. In November of last year, it was hard to sell Uganda that it's a beautiful, good country you guys should go visit, when the country was locked down and there were 58 bodies lying on the streets of Kampala. I can't sell that. I really can't. So the government has to help. The president needs to, and his people need to start looking at us as an asset. We have always been an asset. Okay? When I'm educating my young brothers like I did, I'm helping Museveni and Ugandans who live in Uganda. I don't live there. Because if I'm helping Kennedy, who's talking about security, those young men, if they're not educated, they're going to become a security threat to the country. They will rob you, Kennedy. So I am doing that. And for the president and the people of Uganda and leadership to look at me as somehow dismiss me as an enemy, or I'm just making noise, or I don't matter, or I need to appease the white people, whatever it is that I'm an agent of the homosexual movement, that's nonsense. Appreciate me as the asset that I am, the ambassador of my country in these foreign lands. And with that, I thank you again. And thank you to our viewers, and I hope these conversations continue, because this misinformation comes out of us not talking. And if we're not talking, then leaders like Museveni now that have isolated themselves with just a few people talking to them will never hear us. Okay, but the more conversations, the better. Thank you so much, Lynn.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Albert. That has been really, really good. I have enjoyed this conversation. Miriam, before we can all go, Tomcat Service says, I really look forward to a real discussion on dual citizenship and how we can work on making it easy for a real civic engagement. I think there's something we can all look out for, maybe next time we have these engagements. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope to catch up with you later. Happy celebrations, Albert, and those of you are going for celebrations. The weather is quite funny here. I'll see if I can go go and also celebrate a little bit. But thank you very much. I wish you the very best.